Hey everybody, welcome to the chapter on user stories and tasks. This will provide a brief overview hitting all the high points for you. So a few key concepts that we want to make sure you remember. First, user stories are made up of tasks. We've already gone over user stories and what those are, and now we're going to talk about a brief way of breaking those down into more concrete action items. Stand-up meetings are going to be awesome. UML is going to help you. That's called the Unified Modeling Language. And the more things change, the more you will find out. So on to these first things. User stories can be broken down into tasks. You may have a basic user story, but each one of those user stories is written from a user's perspective. It has no technical language, and it is made to help communicate clearly with your client what is going on. What we can do as a team is take that user story and break it down into tasks or technical tasks, such as creating classes or user interfaces or database tables or SQL scripts or Python scripts, whatever that is. Every user story actually has a lot of technical aspects that go into it. By breaking it down into tasks, we can estimate individual tasks, and that will give us more confidence and more insight into what we're doing with each of our user stories. This is really important to think through as well because many of your user stories will share very similar tasks. So for instance, all the tasks that have to do with creating tables and schemas and database things may go to your DBA. The UI design may go to your designer on staff, while creating classes and APIs and stuff may go to the software engineer or the developer or the cloud team or something like that. This really helps us build this up. When you're doing this in GitLab and a lot of version control and things like that, the user story will typically be your issue, and the task will be check marks underneath it. Some teams will start with user stories, and they'll also just go in and list everything as tasks. Get rid of the user stories and just list out every task that must be done. There's different ways to do this, and different teams will be doing it differently in practice. For this class, every issue will be a user story, and your tasks will be bullet items within the description. So in addition to that, just remember that stand-up meetings are awesome. Stand-up meetings are typically daily or every other day meetings. They're less than 15 minutes where you talk to your team and talk about what's going on. This goes along with this theme of constant communication. If you meet every day and you look at what's going on and what has to be done, you're going to get better. So typically we ask of each person in a stand-up meeting, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And what are your blockers? Okay, a blocker is something that's holding you up or causing you problems that you can't move forward. This is a time for your team to debrief. These normally actually end up happening around 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. after everybody's in. They've gotten their feet under themselves for the day. They've had their coffee, all this kind of stuff. This is your time to bring up issues, to talk about things, and just to touch base and hang out and all get on the same page. After you've broken things into tasks, you're working through your stand-up meetings. When you're trying to design your software, one of the tools we have along the way that can help us do this is called UML, or the Unified Modeling Language. We use this to build things like class diagrams, like you see here. This is the airplane class. It has a member variable called speed of type integer. You'll see speed colon integer. The minus sign means that it's private. A line that separates member variables and methods. And then you have your methods along with all these things. Now there's some very specific nomenclature when we get to UML. The plus, the minus, the hashtag, slash, underscore, the tilde, right? Public, private, protected, derived, static, or package. We want to use these all appropriately as we work through these and as we build UML diagrams. Some people hate UML. They think it's completely useless. I find that the best use of UML is documenting your code. Or if you're working on a new project that's from an existing code base, it really helps to sit down and draw out the UML diagrams of all the classes and relationships. That just gives you such deep insight into how things relate and where things go and where things move and how they integrate. So it's something I'd really, really strongly suggest that you do. Okay? So this is a class diagram. There are other things that we can do with these class diagrams and other diagrams in UML. For instance, we can have association. A date has an event. Okay, so in this case, a date may have 0 or more. 0 dot dot asterisk, that means unlimited events. You may have 0 to 1, no instances or 1 instance, 1, exactly 1 instance. 0 dot dot asterisk or asterisk means 0 or more, and 1 dot dot asterisk means 1 or more. These are really important things to remember because you will see them in technical documentation. and they are a great visual tool that helps technical people communicate. You can also have other associations, right? So a person subscribes to a magazine where the person is the subscriber and the magazine is the subscribed. You can have an aggregation, right? A professor has one or more classes, right? And a class has students. You can have composition, right? A car owns a carburetor. Okay, so these are important things, and there's actually a really important distinction here between an aggregation and a composition, right? So in aggregation, you'll see a professor has a class, right? The class can exist without the professor, but it never should. Okay. Composition, when you say an owns is a different situation because a car can't run without a carburetor. Okay. So you need to make sure that you go over these. A great resource is the appendix in your textbook as well as Wikipedia. These are important things that you need to know how to do. Another key concept in object-oriented programming is inheritance. We can use these class diagrams in UML to show inheritance, right? This is an example from your book, right? Nunchuck inherits weapon, right? Sword inherits weapon, bayonet inherits weapon. If these were all classes, weapon would be the base class, nunchuck, sword, bayonet would be the derived classes, right, that inherit from weapon. So you should have gone over these in earlier CS classes, so I'm not going to re-explain inheritance, but this is how you visually denote it. So we've broken user stories into tasks. We've talked about stand-up meetings, and we know that UML can help us out. The one thing that we do absolutely want to remember amongst all this is that things change. You're going to get a text, you're going to get an email from your client, from your coworker, you're going to get an instant message, whatever that is, that says, hey, this is changing, priorities change, the due date changed, the budget was cut, the budget was expanded, we dreamed up this new feature, what's it going to take? Your plan is going to change. It's something you just got to get over. It is going to change. You are constantly going to be rearranging user stories and tasks and all these things, shifting them between iterations and moving and stuff like that. The thing to remember here is that you are agile, right? You are agile. You don't do agile, you are agile. So when these changes come in, you're going to respond. You're going to change your plan. You're going to accommodate. You're going to not accommodate. You're going to feel free to say, yes, we can accommodate this, and this is what it will cost. This is what will happen. You're going to say, no, we can't accommodate this because X, Y, and Z. This is really important to remember. Things will change. The most important thing to remember in all of this is that you must keep the channels of communication open. If you want your project to fail, don't communicate well with your coworkers or your clients. If you do that, I can guarantee you your project will fail. Okay? If you want to succeed, communicate well, communicate clearly, communicate accurately, communicate kindly. These are really important things. Be straightforward, be honest, and build a reputation that engenders trust. Okay, so those are the high points from user stories and tasks. Hope that hit it all. Make sure you read your chapter and do your assignments. Very straightforward. You just have a plot on the y-axis of work remaining and then days remaining on